I want to read to you a statement from Rav Chaim Vital. Rav Chaim Vital, for those who do not know, was the #1 student of the Arizal. And this story goes back 500 years ago. I'm stressing that this story is 500 years old because what I'm about to say to you now is remarkable, because everything that I'm telling you now was written and sealed 500 years ago. Actually, he himself is doing nothing more than quoting from Chazal, from statements that were said 2,000 years ago. And as my Rebbe Rav Moshe Shapira used to say, sometimes instead of listening to the news outlets, you should close everything and just listen to Chazal. Open up the ancient Sfarim, everything you need to know to understand Tashin Pei Daled, you can find written in the writings of Hagadolim at Tzaddikim thousands of years ago. So let's begin at the beginning, literally at the beginning. In the beginning, Hashem created heaven and earth. What does that mean? Bereshis bar lakim es hashamayim v'esaretz. Chazal explained the opening pasuk, which corresponds to like the first day of creation, where Hashem was echad, is the world where everything is perfect. It's the world where everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be. 7 words, Bereshis bara elakim es hashamayim ve'es haaretz. The way it is, and which I can't explain to you now, but in Mitzvah Hashem and Derech Hashem, we're going to learn this together. That's the way it's going to be like in the end of days. Everything goes back to those 7 words. The second pasuk describes a world in free fall. The second, just like in the second day of creation, we saw a world where evil was created, where Gehenna was created. The second pasuk begins with V'haaretz haisitohu u'bohu v'chayshech al pnei tahayim. Chazal tell us that this was the 4 nations of exile the Klal Yisrael had to go through, and it's a crazy thing to see how everything that Chazal said then we now see with our own eyes. The 3 exiles that come first is the exile of Babylonia. That's Tohu, Boihu are the Persians, Chayshech are the Greeks. Exactly this time now in 2 weeks is the beginning of Hanukkah. So you have these three exiles. And Maharal explained they're not exiles that came and left, but they're exiles that are continuously happening. These exiles correspond to the 3 continuous challenges that you and I have. Number 1 is the challenge to deal with the military might of our enemies. So the roots are the Babylonians, Nebuchadnezzar, who came and destroyed the first Bais Hamikdash, but the fruits of those roots goes all the way to the Crusaders, all the way to the Inquisition, all the way to the Holocaust. This is the bloodletting of the children of Esau. The second exile is Persia. What does Persia mean? Persian exile means cultural exile. Persian exile means that in the 4 corners of this world, as we speak now, we are all beholden to the way it was back then in the story of Purim, that we had sucked ourselves into the local culture, listened to their music, dressing in their fashion, and yeah, everyone has to buy Barbie paraphernalia. That's the rules. Whatever they say you do, you do. Whatever music they tell you to listen to, you listen to. The third is the Greeks. So the Greeks, as you know from the Hanukkah story, is the intellectual exile, which means that they tell us how to think. They tell us what to do in terms of the world of thought and intellectualism. And it includes everything. If they say that the correct way of behavior is to be woke, you better be woke. That's the way these things work. The 4th exile is called Tahim, the deep. That corresponds to Rome, which is Edom. Edom, Chazal tell us, transmogrifies 10 times. What does it mean to transmogrify? No idea. But what it means is that the 10th one, according to Rav Chaim, not Vital, Rav Chaim of Volozhin, which is the Beis Hamedrash of the Vilna Gaon, the 10th one is going to be America. America is the last expression of Edom, and their power, which is the nature of Edom, is to take all the other 3 exiles and to swallow them up. Today, we have a nation called America. Now, America is not an evil nation, but for us, it's still Spitz exile. It's a tremendous exile. Why? First of all, they have tremendous military might. At the end of the day, if America decides to turn any corner of the world into a parking lot, they can do so. Their military is unprecedented in history in how much power they have. The second thing about America today is that they have cultural supremacy. So that's it. If you live in Southeast Asia or you live in Brazil, doesn't matter where you are, you have to listen to their music. You have to listen to their singers. That's just the way these things are. You have to watch their Netflix. This is the cultural Tsar and exile and Galus that we're in. The third and final one is the intellectual Galus. That's the Brit. I'm embarrassed to say this, but Kachazed, and the way it is. Someone in Oxford and Cambridge wants to take their studies to the next level, to go to America. They have to go to Boston, to wherever it is, or they have to go to Palo Alto, the Bay Area. America has this power. America is the most powerful nation that the world has ever seen. Comes along Rav Chaim Vital, and Rav Chaim Vital says, this is on a parak of Tehillim, I have it in my pocket. This is Tehillim Kuf Kaf Dalet. One of the Shir Malses. He says, Kvar Yadata, who knows? Ki Agolas Einu Eladal. There's only 4 Goliaths. Babel is Paras Hamara, Yavan Edom. Abel Oida Sidim Yisrael Yes Ba'achris Hayamim Begolas Yishmael. At the end of days, Klal Yisrael is going to be in Golas Yishmael. Where does he know this from? Pirkei Rav Eliezer, 2,000 years ago, writes that there's going to come a time when the exile is going to end up back in the land of Israel. And the Jews are going to be back here in the exile of Ishmael. His land is going to be broken up into small parts, and Ishmael is going to oppress us, and the whole world is going to be affected by it. And then he says the following thing. He says, this 5th exile, he adds 2 words. And I remember my Rebbe, Rav Moshe Shapira, when he said these 2 words, he was literally shaking all over. This was so emotional for him. He says that this 5th exile that will happen at the end of days, and I quote, Kasher mikulam, it will be more difficult and more harsher to deal with than any other gods. Okay, ladies, I want you to swallow what I just said and try and understand this. What does it mean? It's going to be a 5th Galus, which obviously means it's going to be the climax of the 4th Galus, the climax of the Galus of America, of Edom. It's going to be in the hands of Ishmael. What on earth does that mean? And how on earth can Ishmael be worse than anything else? I'm hoping this year still ends up normal. If it does, then me and my brother, Rabbi Bowman, we're going to discuss to take a whole bunch of you guys to Poland. He's like, he's my bro. It's a way of speaking. Rabbi Bill and I, if we get to take you to Poland, we're going to take you to a place called Auschwitz. And Rabbi Bowman is going to explain to you what it means Hungarian transports. And you're going to learn that what we saw this week, which is by far the darkest day in all of history since the Holocaust. It's unbelievable. We just lived through this 5 days ago. Was the darkest day since the Holocaust of the Jewish people. The 1,200 Yidden, which means as we speak, the 1,200 Shivas, and as the information is coming out, they didn't just die. They were murdered in the most brutal, unspeakable ways, with cruelty that the Nazis would have been proud of them. What they did to Jewish women and to Jewish children. And yet, compared to the Holocaust, it's small change. I'm just talking numbers and brutality. I'm talking about between 8 and 12 trainloads of Hungarian Jews came in every day to Auschwitz. That means every day there were significantly more Jews that were killed, up to 10,000 a day. I'm talking about over days and weeks and months until there was like 300,000 to 400,000 Hungarian Jews were murdered. So, Rabbi Aaron the Belzer Rebbe said, the suffering of the Jewish people on those kind of numbers ended with the Holocaust. And it makes sense what he says, because all the numbers adding up, meaning every single Jew since the Holocaust that has died because they're either Jewish or Israeli soldier or from terrorism, is approximately the equivalent of 1 week of Hungarian transports. So what does it mean when we say kasha mikulam? The words make no sense. In one sense, are this worse than anything else? It's the question I want to answer. So I hate being so heavy, so I'm just going to lighten up. The mashal I'm going to give you now to help you understand what's going on is the following. I'm looking around over here. I'm seeing Meohr girls. It's not so hard to point them out. It's pretty obvious. But there's some girls over here that secretly would fantasize to be a Disney princess. No, you're probably like a Disney villain. I think that would be more like you. You can more or less see them. They normally sit not in the back row, but one before the back row. The point I want to make is that I want you to join me in a fantasy journey. For those of you that have gone crazy, I'm giving you a mashal. And actually, I'm going to make sense eventually. Here we go. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, in a faraway land, where there were bold knights and there were ogres that lived in swamps. There was a beautiful princess, and she was so beautiful that every prince secretly wished that he could have her hand in marriage. And every young lady fantasized, I wish I could be like her. And whatever she wore, they would wear. And when she would change her hairstyle, they too would change their hairstyles. And she was famous for being famous. And she was the happening one for being the happening one. And she was exciting for being exciting. She was the it woman. She had her own stall right there in Los Angeles in Rodeo Drive. She even had a TV show, reality show, named after her, Keeping Up with the Kamenetskis. Now, this girl had a little secret that she was harboring from all the other people in the world. She didn't know what to do with herself, because deep in her heart, she felt an existential anxiety. She was not happy. And one day she decided to tell Daddy. Her father was the most powerful man in the world. His name was Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the most powerful man that the world had ever seen. And she goes in and says, Daddy, I'm not content. Father looks and says, what do you mean you're not content? You can have anything you want. You want to travel? I'll arrange it for you. You want an, I don't know, a line of perfume named after you. I'll do that. You name it, I do it. I am all powerful. I will take care of you. No, Father. I am looking for something spiritual. I'm looking for ruchnias. That's what I'm looking for. That's what's missing in my life. At that moment, a darkness fell into the throne room, like dementors had arrived. And Pharaoh felt extremely uncomfortable. Pharaoh looks around and says, I want everyone to leave. I want a little bit of private time with my daughter. He looks at his daughter and says, have you gone mad? She goes, no, I need the real thing. I need ruchnias. The Pharaoh says, I'm going to tell you something. And it's embarrassing I'm telling you this, because you know your father is. Your father is Paro Melech Mitzrayim. I am the lowest of the lowest of the lowest. The furthest and darkest corners of the internet, been there, done that. It's all me. In a few hundred years' time, a man called Yirmiyahu Navi is going to call me Erev Haaretz, the most depraved, lowest thing on the planet. I can't do ruchnias, but I want to share with you a story. Once upon a time, a woman was brought into my palace. This woman was so beautiful that every other woman that exists in this world is like a monkey compared to her beauty. But I want to tell you something very scary. Every time I looked at her beauty, I instantly was thinking of elevated things. Her external beauty brought me into her internal beauty. And from that internal beauty, I felt elevated. I felt spiritual. I felt connected to God. And it was not a pleasant feeling because I'm Pharaoh. But I want you to know, my dear daughter, if you are seriously looking for Ruchnias, you got to find this woman. What's her name? You want to know her name? Her name is Sarah, the wife of Abraham. She is the woman you need to find. The next day, Hagar is off. The next day, there is the biggest scandal that Egypt has ever seen since Where's Waldo? And she reappears at the front door of a seminary called B'no Sarah. She closes her top button. She has her hair in a bun. She covers everything. And the door is open. There's Sarah Imenu. Sarah says, who are you? I said, I'm Hagar, princess of Egypt. No, because seriously, Purim's over. Who are you? He says, no. I gave up everything. I want to join your seminary. Sarah Imenu, after they pick her up off the floor because she's laughing so hard, he says, like, seriously, I don't mean to be offensive, but I don't think we're the right seminary for you. Maybe try Meohr. Just kidding. Every Greenwald, if you listen to this, just kidding. All right. I like my job. Anyhow, but seriously, now I happen to know something about Rabbi Greenwald. He's a good friend of mine. Every year, he likes to take in a few girls who are like experiments. Where are you, out of towners? Okay, I'm just kidding. Okay, there's always that one or two girls. Yeah, there she is. Okay, that's it. So it's because, by the way, he does amazingly with these ladies. Just for the record, doesn't make any difference. Sarah looks at Hagar and says, okay, 1 month trial. Let's see how it goes. A month later, Hagar is steiging away her bruises with Eliezer's daughter. And she's like top of her class. She's brilliant. She's at Sanua. She's learning. She's burning the base of Medrash. She has to say every moment counts. And this keeps on going. And one day, Hagar is asked by Sarah Imenu, I need you to come to my office. Am I in trouble? On the contrary. Sarah Imenu says to Hagar, I want to say something to you. And you have to take this the right way. And I just want to tell you now, the one I'm about to say to you now sounds ridiculous unless you see it through the lenses of Chazal. So I'm going to explain to you what it means. Sarah says, Hagar, I want you to be my husband. That's Avram Avinu. I want you to be my husband's concubine. It's a little awkward. No. Let me explain to you what that means. That means that if you are smart, you can be like what Bill and Zilpah is going to be in 2 generations. You're going to be the mother of Shvatim. You're going to bring Shvatim into this world. How the system works, I'm not really explaining now. But it means that Hagar is like a surrogate mother on behalf of Sarah Imenu. Soon afterwards, Hagar, actually the first pregnancy was a miscarriage, which I can explain to you, but not now. Second pregnancy is a child that's going to be Ishmael. And then Hagar starts to think too, I say, maybe I'm more chashuv than my mistress Sarah Imenu. Big mistake. From being that little Madel girl, she suddenly becomes too big for her princessly boots. This is not good. And Sarah Imenu has a chinuch situation. What am I going to do with her? I'm going to teach her a lesson. And then Sarah decides to do something radical. She says, the only way that I can teach Hagar a lesson is if I cut her off from the source of her spiritual nourishment. And the next day, Hagar goes down in infamy as being the first girl ever to be kicked out of seminary. first go ever. Now, I just want to say a little point over here. Honestly, Chazal say that Hagar ended up in the midbar. I want to tell you what a midbar means. A midbar, excuse my French for saying this publicly, a midbar is what you and I call crack square. I'm hoping that no one in this room, except maybe the Shanabek girls, know what I'm talking about. A couple of miles from where we are, right near the old city, is a place where all the rejects of the yeshivas and the seminaries assemble. It's a horrible place. There are needles on the floor. It's not a place that you'd want anyone that you care about to be. I'm going to make a statement that I know that is radical, and I'm sure other educators disagree with me. God forbid you ever have a friend who gets kicked out of a seminary, and you know her, you should pick up the phone and say to her the following thing. You may have done some dumb things, but you're a good person. You have to tell her, and again, you have to do this obviously on your terms. You can't let her bring you down, but you have to send her love and send her chizuk, because you may save her from the midbar. You may save her from letting her self-esteem crash, so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you label me as trash, it's okay, son, I'm trash. I'm going to go to crack square. I'm going to be the lowest of the lowest. That's what happened to Hagar. Hagar ends up in the midbar. Hagar's now a nothing. And what happens next is going to change the course of history to the point that you and I are suffering from this as I speak in the deepest way. Hagar starts to daven. She starts to pray to who? To Hashem, to Kadosh Baruch Hu. What does the Kadosh Baruch Hu do? Kadosh Baruch Hu listens. Kadosh Baruch Hu listens to the low lives of the world. In Yiddish, we say the Eisvar, and we may have heard that phrase. The rejects. The one that everyone says, oh, you don't want to be like her. Hashem says, I love you more than you and I could ever love the biggest tzaddikus or the biggest tzaddik or the sweetest child. Kadosh Baruch Hu loves the lowest person in the world. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm there for you. Then he sends angels. I saw an angel from heaven. Not one, not two, not three, 4 angels. Each one giving a news. One says, you're pregnant with a little boy called Ishmael. He's going to be a pain to all of humanity till the end of time. It's so beautiful. And then she turns around. She sees a be'er. And she says, well, well, well. Anyhow, she says a well. And she calls it be'er l'chayrai. A well which I'm honoring by calling it after the gods that looks after me, says Rashi. I thought till now that God is only in the house of Abraham and Sarah with tzaddikim and tzidkanios, like, you know, the top girls from the top Sams and the top yeshivas, and they're the beautiful people. No, 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 señorita, you are wrong. Hashem cares about everyone, the rejects, the lowest of the lowest. That Be'er L'chayroi, says Chazal, becomes the Be'er Miriam, which gives water to Klal Yisrael for 40 years, which ends up in the Kinneret. And the Arizal gave those waters to his Talmud, Rav Chaim Vital, who we just quoted, to open up the gates of wisdom. Where does it begin? With Hagar. Now we start to understand why Hagar is such a formidable enemy. Because Hagar opens up a new passage in Tefillah. The Tefillah of people in pain. The Tefillah of people that have been rejected by everyone. Shem answers Hagar's Tefillahs. Worse than that. Hagar's child is named Yishmael. Hagar's child is named Yishmael. The Malach representing God gives him this divine name. What is Yishmael? Hashem, listen. Yishmael has God's name, Kel, and Shema in it. His name, Yishmael, which, by the way, became a Jewish name, Rabbi Yishmael. Yishmael means Hashem, listen. It's the most frightening thing. This begins with Hagar, and it goes down generation after generation after generation. You know how powerful it is? The Chazal teaches the Hagar is Gematria, Hey, Gimel, that's 8. Reish, 208, is the same Gematria as Yitzchak, Yud, Tzadi, Ches, Kuf. Yitzchak is the source of Tefillah of Klal Yisrael. Yitzchak is the Akedah. Yitzchak is the Mesiras Nefesh. Yitzchak is the way that we survive Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. To the ashes of Yitzchak, the first person to do Ishtachavah. And Yitzchak has a nemesis on the side of evil, which is Hagar. When I say the side of evil, Hagar does tshuva. Hagar eventually comes, second marriage goes back to Avram Avinu after Sarah. ISHMAEL does tshuva. These are very frightening things, because the journey to get there, a lot of evil is unleashed. And they have the koyach of tefillah. You don't have to go far to believe me. Step out of Meohr Bais Yaakov, you can see Arabs, they take out a mat, they put themselves on the floor, they're not ashamed, 5 times a day, every day is Yom Kippur. They will take their last pennies to go on the Aliyah L'Rega, it's called the Hajj, they go to Mecca, then Moisa Nefesh, you go to the Kotel, the holiest place for us. What's on the other side? The place of the Kodesh Kodashim. ISHMAEL has held on to that for longer than we ever had the Beis HaMikdash. This is the biggest kitcher. It's the most frightening thing. Hagar passes to ISHMAEL the power of tefillah, and that's the reason why they are such a dangerous enemy. Now we understand something. Why is it that we say that Rav Chaim Vital says Kasher Mikulam? They're not as evil as the Nazis were in terms of what they do to us. They have no armies. Honestly, they don't need armies. They have tefillah. They took down the Twin Towers. They took the most powerful nation that ever existed in history, and they took them down with a bunch of guys that run around in their flip-flops and loincloths in Afghanistan, and they took down those towers. You see that the weak can take down the mighty when you have the power of tefillah. I don't want to say this because it sounds like a kitcher, but this Shabbos, in a matter of 3 hours, Ishana Sholashas, Israel, which on paper is the most powerful army in the Middle East, probably amongst the top 10 in the world. And they were, I don't want to use the word taken down, but they were with these half humans. I don't want to say half animals because I don't want to insult animals. But these para-autos, Yimach Shemam, they took down the Israeli army with tractors and gliders. You know why? They had the koyach of tefillah. And Hashem said no to us and yes to them. Just like in 1967, he said yes to us and no to them. And we all saw with clarity that the real battle that's going on is not between armies. Hashem can do what he wants. Hashem, as we mentioned in Hanukkah, can let a bunch of yeshiva bachrim take down the Greek army. Hashem can do what he wants. It's a battle that is going literally less than an hour's drive from where we are now, where your brothers and your sisters are putting their lives in danger as we speak. If that is compared to like a racing car, they have their racing car, we have ours. Who's faster? Who's more powerful? If Tzahal are in the driver's seats and Tzahal have the wheels, who's the engine that makes the car run? Who gives the car fuel? Is our tefillos. The real battle, I mean the front line of the front line, is their mosques versus our shuls. Their Qurans, lahavdil, against our tehillins. This mindset changes everything to understand what's going on. Hands up those of you in this room that knows an Israeli soldier. Okay, look around what you're seeing. I want to ask you all for a favor. I know you're 18-year-old girls. I know if I get to know you, and I hope I get to know you one-on-one. I see you guys are normal. What are you normal? There are girls in this room that hate davening. The girls in this room that hate Hashem because of what you've gone through. I'm not judging. There are girls in this room that are okay with davening, but they don't know why they have to say all this stuff, and they don't get into it. Difficulties. The girls in this room, if I look into your brain, that's it. There's all this stuff going on. No one asked my father in 1939, are you ready to deal with the Nazis? When he was a teenager. He was thrown in. He had no choice. He had to become adult very quickly. And I'm telling you now that you may think you're little girls, but you're not, because Hashem chose you to be here. If you're here, you're for a reason. I know some of you say, but Reverend Islam, I'm immature. Okay, yes, you're immature. I'm not arguing with that. And I know you're in therapy. But get over it, because I need you, and Klal Yisrael needs you to step up to the plate and find inside of yourself powers of tefillah that you never knew you had. And powers of maturity and powers of responsibility that you never knew you had. You cannot wait till you get older. You cannot wait, okay, Hanukkah, Pesach, then I'll get serious. No, señorita. Now, we need you to believe that your tefillos are fighting their tefillos. They are a dangerous enemy because they fight on our turf. With the Nazis, it made sense. They have gas chambers. We have a sitter. We have a page of Gemara. We have chesed. But with Yishmael, who had the coil of Yishmael, Basher Usham, Hashem Yirachem, Hashem don't listen to them, but they have that. And we know Hashem listens to the tefillos of the evil. Then we have to do everything we can to daven, not like Yishmael. Yitzchak did. Yitzchak is with a serious nefesh. Yitzchak gives everything for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Akedah. You know what else you have to daven for? That our brothers and sisters should do tshuva now. There should be this iris of tshuva. You know how scary it is. I'll never forget my Rebbe, Rav Moshe Shapira. We say, Eile Barechev, Eile Basutzim, V'anachnu b'Shem Hashem Naskir. They have their cavalry. They have their armored divisions. We have the name of God. But chas v'shalom, what's going to be if it's the other way around? Listen to their leaders. Every other word they say is God. Allah Akbar, Kel Kabir. God is powerful. God will help us. Our cause is just. They honestly believe that their evil and their cruelty and their rituals is Hashem's will. Yishmael, God will listen to me. And our leaders, I don't want to say kitros, but halavai. Instead of calling it, the iron fist war, whatever it is, the power of Tzahal, they should do tshuva and they should say the Simchas Torah war. Our yeshivas should give koach to Tzahal. That the tefillas of the Meohr gods should make sure that the bullets miss, that the missiles miss. I have no time for any girl in this room to tell me I have low self-esteem. I'm sorry. You must have stolz. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe with an emunah shalema that I, with my tefillos, can save lives. That I, with my tefillos, can direct a missile, doesn't hit. Kol achrayos. You also have to believe that you were chosen to be here. Those that go back, I don't want to mess with your mamas. Yeah. But those that stay here, you will see that you will grow in unfathomable ways. That all the money seminary you can pay to Rabbi Greenwald won't be able to be a fraction of how much you're going to grow this year. I know this because I saw what happened in the Gulf War. I saw those ones that stayed. Hashem gave them a siyat and b'shai mitzuraf on a whole different level.